So I'm Carol Greenwell. I'm the program manager at the Juvenile Assessment Center. So the Juvenile Assessment Center is the county's short-term juvenile detention facility and assessment center. So any kid who's arrested in Boulder County gets brought to the Juvenile Center. They have to be between the ages of 10 and 17. The staff at the Juvenile Center do all the processing for the arrest, so doing fingerprints and mugshots, putting them in computer systems, lots of paperwork, and then they also do assessments with the youth and their family. And through those assessments, the staff determine if the kids can be released safely back into the community to their parents on a bond, where their parents don't have to pay the bond. It's called a co-PR bond. And if the kids end up staying in custody to go to court, they stay at the juvenile center, where staff supervise them and do programming with them, attend their court appearances. Staff also do transports between here and a state-run facility called Platte Valley in Greeley, because if kids stay in custody longer than 2 to 5 days, they can't stay at the juvenile center because it's short-term, so they have to stay at the long-term state facility. So there is about 20 staff. We have a mixture of full-time staff and hourly staff, and then we also have a detention therapist that also works at the Jack and at Platte. She goes between both facilities to see the kids. So the juvenile center never closes. So staff work a variety of shifts, days of the week. We always have to have staff at the center to supervise kids or deal with any kids that are arrested at any time. Every day looks different, and you never know what you're going to walk into. So at the end of the year, our average daily population is about 6 kids. So it changes every day though. So one day we might have 1 kid, the next day we might have 8 to 10. It really just depends on the day and what's going on. All the staff are trained in crisis prevention. So they're trained in verbal de-escalation skills and also physical management skills if needed to keep the kids or the staff safe. We're extremely lucky because we don't have very many incidents where kids have to be physically managed because staff spend the majority of their time verbally de-escalating the youth, and they don't physically touch the kids unless it's absolutely necessary to keep the kids safe or a staff member safe. So the staff use a validated assessment tool called the Colorado Juvenile Risk Assessment Tool. And the results of that tell staff if kids are at high risk or low risk to recidivate. But staff also take into consideration the kid's social history and their family situation. And really if a kid, after doing the assessment with both the kid and their guardian, if staff determine the kid is a risk to themselves or a risk to the community, a risk to not show up in court or run away, then typically they're released back to their parents. The philosophy is really to only keep kids in detention that need to be in detention for safety reasons. Typically for a kid to be detained, it could be a number of things. It could be the level of their charges. Some charges kids aren't allowed to be released on. If they have a significant criminal history or runaway history or history of violence, then they'll typically stay in custody. Another big part of what staff do is working with parents to talk to them about whether or not they want their kid home. Staff spend a lot of times having conversations with parents. Sometimes parents are resistant on having their kids home or want them to learn lessons. So staff do a lot of work also with parents on educating them on what happens when a kid stays in detention, what the effects could be when the kid does return home, as opposed to this is really not used for punishment unless the judge decides that's what's required. So when staff do the CJRA, when they identify a kid that is low risk, and have a lot of protective factors at home or in the community, they really try to get those kids home with their parents and families. Really, the general philosophy is we're a part of the Impact Partnership, which involves community service, housing and human services, school districts, district attorney's office, public defenders. So we all kind of work together and partner together with a shared mission of really keeping low-risk kids out of detention and also making sure kids are matched with services appropriately according to their risk level. So typically when we have low-risk kids, we try to get them out of custody as soon as we can. And we've increasingly, our numbers have gone down at the juvenile center, which is great. And the number of kids that are going to Platt, our state facility, there's very low numbers of low-risk kids going there. They're typically the moderate and high-risk kids. So the work that we do at the Juvenile Center is important. So all the staff who work at the Juvenile Center are extremely passionate about working with youth and really making sure they remain safe, and also while they're in custody, if they do have to remain in custody, is really using a trauma-informed approach and trying to have it be as less harmful as experience as possible for the youth and their families, and with the goal of working with the partner agencies to get the kids out as quickly as possible and safely as possible.